Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be using a couple of brand new products from the Simon Says Stamp Rainbows release and creating this repeating rainbows background. So this is the repeating rainbows background stamp. I'm going to use the new Sassy Insides stamp set as well as a couple of previously released products from Simon Says Stamp to create this bright and happy card and matching envelope. We're going to start with our repeating rainbows background stamp and stamp this on a 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel of Bristol smooth cardstock. There are so many ways you can use this background stamp. You can ink over it for embossed resist. You can stamp and emboss this on a colored cardstock for a really modern look that maybe isn't even kind of quote-unquote rainbow. Just lots of ways to color it with different mediums. I am opting to do kind of my faux watercolor look with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. That's why I chose the Bristol Smooth cardstock for my background. I stamped this with a clear embossing ink and then I'm heat embossing with white embossing powder. I went ahead and started with the size of panel that I want for my card. A lot of times I'll start with a bigger panel, but I went ahead and just started with that 4 by 5 1/4 inch panel rather than the A2 size of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Another idea is you could die cut this when you're done into a square, a heart, a circle, a rectangle, whatever you want to do to completely change up the look. To color in the rainbows, I am applying the light and dark, or the dark, then the light color to each rainbow arc, and then blending out with a water brush pen. Now, I know that my words on the screen, the marker colors I'm using, are covering that up, but there I have removed them so that you can see the coloring from now on without those words in the way. The marker colors are going to be listed on my blog as well for easy reference. Definitely check that out in the description box below. There is a link to the coordinating blog post for this project. Now I went ahead and did one just to kind of make sure that I liked it. And then I'm going to do the rainbows kind of in rows. I did about, I'd say 2 to 3 rows at a time. It just kind of depended. I'm going to do a couple of these on camera, maybe like a third of the panel on camera, but it really is repetition. This is probably the most time-consuming part of this project, and I am so sorry I'm so far up in the screen. Hopefully I think I moved this down a little bit. But like I said, I just did the rest of this off camera. So I did a little bit here and then I'm just going to move. I think I moved to the kitchen table to do this. I stand to craft. I would love to know in the comments if you sit to craft, if you stand to craft. I know that that's something that people talk about a lot. I have so much trouble sitting to craft when I go places like to do a craft weekend with friends or whatever, just because it's not what I'm used to. I'm just used to standing to craft. I think it's so that I'm not having to get up and grab things all the time. I'm already up, but I don't know. I have stood to craft for so many years now that it's really hard for me to do it another way. I've started to stand to quilt, to sew and piece quilt tops together as well. So anyway, the gist of my story is I would love to know in the comments if you sit or stand to craft. So just kind of doing this in assembly line order, if you will. You also would totally not have to add water to these if you didn't want to. You could lay down your dark color and then pull the rest of that color out with your light to get that nice kind of ombre effect. This was just kind of an easy way to smooth that color out. I say easy. I think it would be just as easy just to use your marker. So that is an option as well. I kind of like that in some of the rainbows you can see where the water pooled a little bit and it's a little less perfect that way with adding the water. I'm loving watching the rainbows come together. Something else I did a little different, and I purposely did this for my card, was that I started with I kind of did a reverse rainbow, if you will. So a lot of times when I do a rainbow, I'm kind of a traditionalist, and I'll start with pink or red on the outer arc of my rainbow and then work my way to like the blue or purple, wherever I'm ending. In this case, there's only 4 rays or 4 arcs of the rainbow, so I was pretty conscientious with my color choices in that respect, what I wanted to showcase. But I started with blue, then green, and then kind of it's yellow, but it works for a yellow-orange, the colors I used, and then finishing with red. I think it would be fun to see this background in some different kind of rainbows, like a muted rainbow, a pastel rainbow, or maybe you do like all summer brights where it's all like pink or reds and yellows and oranges, or cool tones with greens and blues and purples. Just something different and fun. Like I said, I went with more of the traditional rainbow, but there's so many things you can do with this. This is a really fun background stamp from that Rainbows release here. That is the June release at Simon Says Stamp. So many good things in this release. I've got lots and lots of cards and projects coming with components from this release. So I did the rest of that panel off camera. You can see it over here to the right. I did die cut some of my sentiment off camera as well. We'll get into that in a second. But we're going to take the Sassy Insides stamp set from the Rainbows release, and I have a scrap of black licorice cardstock here, and I'm going to use the "You Are Literally My Favorite" sentiment from this, and we're going to stamp and emboss this on black cardstock using a clear embossing ink and heat embossing with white embossing powder. I've used a powder tool first, especially on black cardstock. I want to make sure that my sentiment is hopefully only going to stick to that embossing and not anywhere else. And then we will take our heat tool and melt that embossing powder. I always like to do the back and the front of my cardstock, kind of warm it up and then melt it. It helps reduce warping a little bit, I think. Then I'm going to let that cool. I'm cleaning up my embossing powder, putting away my stamp or my ink, and then I'm going to clean my stamp and put it away. Just anything I can do to give that embossing a minute or a few seconds, whatever, to cool. And then I'm going to take a dry microfiber cloth or a paper towel or something dry and buff away any of that remaining powder that's on the cardstock. Then we're going to take a Simon Says Stamp Sentiment Labels die. I know I talk about these all the time. They are my very favorite. I use them all of the time. You could also trim this with your paper trimmer if you wanted to. I love the dies because it gives you that perfect edge to your sentiment strip when you're making your own. So because this strip is really long, I die cut it lined up with one side first, flip it around, and then just die cut that very end to not shorten it so that it's the perfect length for the sentiment I'm using. Using the Hugs dies, which is a previously released set from Simon Says Stamp, I die cut the hugs from the same colors of cardstock that I used for coloring in the rainbows. So we have got a yellow or a red, a yellow, a green, and a blue hugs. And what I'm doing is I am slightly shifting it up. It is lined up exactly with the layer underneath, but it's going to show a little hint of the color underneath doing it this way. And we are going to end with a white die cut on top so that you just kind of see the rainbow coming out down below. And I hope that becomes evident maybe as I add the layers. You can start to see just little peaks of the color. I liked this because it perfectly matches our background, but yet it's still going to be super easy to read by ending with a solid or a white solid on top. You could leave the blue cardstock on top if you wanted to, or any of the colors. You could pick one of the colors. I just didn't want to focus on one of the colors. I really wanted my sentiment to be in white and just have that hint of rainbow shadow underneath the letters. So once I have finished that, I did die cut the shadow from Vellum. I think you could probably leave the Vellum off if you wanted to. What I like is that in all of the little loops and things of the letters, you're seeing Vellum behind, which slightly mutes the background and makes the sentiment a little bit more legible. So I went ahead and used it today. Vellum is my favorite medium for being able to still see all of that work that we did in the background, yet just kind of helps makes the sentiment stand out a little bit. So I am going to glue that down to my card. I've also put some foam adhesive on the back of my little sentiment strip already, and I'm just going to pop that down in place. I did not line it up with the center. I liked it shifted over a little bit more where it is kind of right there to the right of the leg of the letter H. Then I'm going to glue my sentiment down. I have an acrylic block on top to help hold that down in place while the glue dries, and I'm adding little dots of glue to the insides of my rainbows. This is probably the thing that transforms this card the most, in my opinion. And then we're taking all of these great little Trinity stamps, red heart accents. You guys know how much I love my heart accents, and we are going to fill the inside of each and every rainbow with a little red heart. You could change this to any color. You could do lots of different colors, but I went with all red, and I'm just going to quickly fill these in. I'm using an embellishment wand to pick them up and quickly put them in place. It kind of helps keep your fingers out of the glue and out of the mess there. And I love, love, love these little hearts. I think they're just the perfect finishing accent for our card. Then we're going to take this whole panel and place it on a white top fold card base. Because it's slightly smaller than the card base, it's going to have a nice white border all the way around. Now it's time for the finishing details for this project. That's going to include a stamped sentiment inside our card. So I'm going to take another phrase from the SASSY Insides stamp set that we used for the front, and we're going to stamp, "I hope you love this card I created just for you." I think this sentiment is going to work for so many cards. I know I've been asked a lot about finishing the inside of cards. Sometimes I just forget. A lot of times I just leave them blank to write whatever message, but I love this. I love that this stamp set is specifically made for the insides of cards, and so I did that there with just a little black ink to finish off the card front, or the card completely. Then I am going to create a coordinating envelope. I didn't want to stamp the rainbow design, the rainbow background stamp, the repeating rainbows all over the front of this envelope. But with so many great rainbow products, I decided to take Rainbow Is My Favorite Color. This is from the June Simon Says Stamp card kit, also available for individual purchase. Plus, they just came out with the coordinating dies for this, but we're going to take the small rainbow from the stamp set and we're going to stamp it in the bottom left corner of this lemon chiffon envelope. These lemon chiffon envelopes are my favorite because you can stencil over them, you can stamp over them with colorful ink, and you get really beautiful results because the ink still shows up so nicely, but the envelope is not a plain white, and I really love that about these lemon chiffon envelopes. So I am using Audrey Blue, Key Lime, Sunshine, and Hot Lips inks from Simon Says Stamp. These are the ink cubes. These are available for purchase from Simon Says Stamp. They're a great way to get a fun color combination that's great for rainbows. And we're going to stamp that, again, little rainbow right there. And then I thought it was a little plain, and because we have the red hearts on the card, I'm going to take the 3 sizes of red hearts included in the Rainbow Is My Favorite Color stamp set, and we will stamp those hearts right there along the left edge of the card as well. I try to stay away from covering the entire envelope if I can. I don't mind writing over part of my design a little bit, but I like to leave a natural spot for my address. I usually, if I'm creating a standard A2 size card, will stamp my return address on the back flap instead of in the upper left corner, but there is still nice room if you like to do your address in the upper left corner that you can do that very easily. I also highly recommend using a MISTI so that you get a perfect stamped impression. I know the inks look a little blotchy here, but they are going to dry very nicely, smooth out, and kind of even fade just a tiny bit, which helps remove some of that blotchiness. Also from the Sassy Insides stamp set, there is the Hugs sentiment. I thought we would decorate the back flap with that Hugs. I know I've talked about this before in other videos, but if you haven't seen any of my videos before or seen me talk about creating coordinating envelopes, I try to do something that is simple and easy and quick because it is the envelope, it's going through the mail. I love that it coordinates, but I don't want to spend tons of time on it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Repeating Rainbows card with matching envelope featuring Simon Says Stamp products. The supplies I used to create this project are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring the Rainbows Release products from Simon Says Stamp that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.